Oh, sorry. Let me put this away. Today we are talking about social media, and specifically, we are talking about how this can be a bit of a time waster. Now, I'm not saying that it's all bad because there are some benefits to social media, but often when we're stuck, it's because we feel like maybe we're spending too much time on social media. So let's unpack that today. Let's get unstuck if something you are trying to do is to have better boundaries and limit some of your time on social media. Maybe have a healthier relationship with it. Now, if we have not met before, my name is Kat from My Happy Insides, and I help people uncover the hidden reasons they are feeling stuck so they can break free and start thriving. So it's time for another edition of Get Unstuck Wednesday. And one of the things I always want to do is make sure you understand the 3 different ways people get stuck. And what I teach is that really there are 3 levels. So at that first level, we're thinking about, are you missing information or skills? And those are keeping you from moving forward. Maybe you're missing information about yourself, and that is keeping you from moving forward. And then finally, kind of the biggest one, is do you have some limiting beliefs that are stopping you from taking action? So maybe you know what to do, you know how to do it, but you're still not doing it. I always like to explore in this order because we should always start with the top. Maybe there are just some things that we are missing. Now, a couple of things I want to address. One, the elephant in the room, which is that I'm on social media right now, and I invited you to come and watch with me. So I'm asking you to spend time on social media, but it's not all bad. There are ways that we can stay connected with friends. There are ways that we can learn things. We can make new connections. And I'm sure that that is something you are well aware of. But often we feel like we don't have a great balance. I know I do. It's something I am continually working on. So let's unpack some of the reasons that you might be having trouble setting some better boundaries with social media. So first, let's take a look at missing information or skills. So when we're missing information or skills, maybe something that we're lacking is actually understanding what are our preferences. How long do you want to spend? Because, and that's the other thing, sometimes we have work and personal that are connected to social media. So getting clear on how much time do I want to spend? The other thing is getting some clarity on how much time am I spending? So things like on the iPhone, there's a screen time app that tells you your daily average and it tells you what you're spending your time on. That's a good way to get an idea of how much you're currently spending. But even without that, often we know when we're spending too much time. But first, you want to know, what are the limits you want to set? What's acceptable for you? Now, the other thing is that social media is designed for attention, that it's on purpose. We live in an attention economy where everyone's trying to get your attention, including the people who run these social media sites. They want you to stay on as long as possible. Now, one of the things that happens because of this is they're figuring out ways to keep our attention. And so social media often uses us. We just zone in, we start scrolling, we start consuming unquestioningly, and then all of a sudden an hour, maybe 2 hours have passed and you think, what just happened? You're not really in control. However, there are ways that you can start using social media for the purpose that you want it. Whether that is staying in touch and connected with friends, whether that's networking with new people, maybe that's education, maybe it's amusement, whatever the reason, you can start to make some changes to make that better. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then the other thing is sometimes we actually just lack certain skills on managing our time with this technology. So there are little things that you can do. So if this is one of your roadblocks, if this is maybe where you are currently a little bit stuck, let's talk about some of those things you can do. So first of all, obviously ask yourself the question, what is acceptable for me? What's my goal? How much time do I want to spend with social media and on the screens? The second thing is we want to figure out what are the ways that, now that I know how I want to use it, what are the ways that I can amplify that or modify my settings so that I'm the one that's in control. So there are certain things that you can do is control the settings. For example, you can decide, maybe you default, where do you actually want to start? You could set a bookmark so that when you open your social media, if this is on a browser, You could go directly maybe to a group that you find valuable or to a list of what some of your close friends or family are doing. The other thing is that you can control notifications. So, what are the actual things that you're seeing? Now, speaking of what you're seeing, please, please, please take stock of the things that you're seeing that you don't actually want to see, the things you don't want to spend time, the things that you kind of scroll through because you're not interested in that. Unfollow. Whether that is unfriending or unfollowing, you have a lot more control than you might think. And taking a little bit of time, whether that's spending half an hour or an hour to work on the settings, to go through and say, am I maybe really emotionally charged when I see certain content? Unfollow it. Take control of your feed. And the other thing is that if there's certain people you want to stay connected to, hop over and stay connected with those people, or just go and search them out first. Now, when it comes to taking control of access, that's another way that you can start to limit yourself. Now, taking control of access might look like removing certain apps off of a mobile device. So maybe you can only go and visit while you are online. Taking control of access might look like a friend of mine who would remove apps off the phone for the weekend so that it's just not there, you can't access it. This is a really great habit hack, which is modifying your environment. The other thing you can do is use certain apps like screen time, where you set how long per day you can actually have, or maybe you set a limit of when you can no longer open those apps. You can have hours that there's just no longer accessible. So really, when you start to learn all the different tips and tricks that are available, including maybe a third-party app, whether that's on your mobile device where you can limit certain apps, or whether that's on your browser where you can actually limit certain web pages you can go to, you have more control than you think. And if you set those up at a time where you're feeling highly motivated to make those changes, it makes it easier for those other times when you don't have the willpower to stay away. You're kind of setting that stuff up in advance, and that can be really helpful. So those are just some of the things. Now, I want to hear from you. If you have a technique, a tip, or a tool that helps you to manage your time, do let me know, even if it's simple. For example, sometimes when I want to go onto Twitter, I want to see some news, I follow some journalists, and I want to just check in, but I know how quickly I can get stuck. So I will often set a timer for 10 minutes, and then I'll open it. And when that timer goes off, I have to leave Twitter to shut it off, and then I just don't go back in. So it doesn't have to be advanced, but share in the comments what are some of the things that you find helpful when it comes to restricting or limiting your time on social media. All right, let's move to the second level, the second way we get stuck. This is if you are missing information about yourself, meaning you need to find something that works for you, because there is no one size fits all approach for making these changes. And sometimes it takes a little bit of tweaking to figure out what works. The first thing is, sometimes if we have an external thing, it'll backfire. For example, I at first started putting restrictions on how much time I could be on social media, and having it cut off at 10 o'clock, my phone would kind of shut down. But once in a while, I needed to look something up, and I resented it so much, and it would make me angry. And yes, I could override it, but it was always really finicky. It was not very good. And I just felt it was making me more angry. So that's an example of where that was not a good fit for me. It doesn't mean it's not a good fit for other people, though. The next one is, have you tried more than one thing? So maybe you tried the screen time app or a third-party thing to try and limit your time, and it just didn't work. Don't assume that there's no other option for you. You can actually try other things and see if there's something that works for you. And the other thing is going back to, what are your intentions? Because you might have all of the techniques and tips and tools in the world, but if you don't really know why you're doing it, that can stop you. And for many of us, especially questioners who are out there, they need that justification. Why am I limiting my time? What is the science? How do I feel when I'm spending more time online versus offline? And when you really get to your intention around how you want to use social media, that can help with accepting some of these changes or deciding what's going to be the right technique for you. Sometimes that is really important. And I see Ron is here. Hello, Ron. It's so nice to see you. Okay, let's go to the third level, which is the deeper one. Oh, and I see Ron's got something here. I get the Instagram 20-minute warnings, but no limit on Facebook. So yeah, figuring out maybe there is one app that's more problematic, although I have a hunch based on what I know about you, Ron, is that maybe you need to explore some restrictions on Facebook based on that little emoji. Now let's take a look at the third level, which is really what I call the adaptive challenge. This is, well, I didn't make it up, but it's called an adaptive challenge, where you have some sort of belief that is holding you back and keeping you stuck. So you know what you're supposed to do, but you're not doing it. So let's look at that. When it comes to identifying limiting beliefs, first we want to see what's the fear. If I actually imagine limiting my time on social media and having really healthy boundaries, what's going to happen? Well, some of the things that could happen, and this is different for everyone, maybe you have a very strong feeling that you are missing out on something, that you are not part of something if you're not online. And so if we have this FOMO, this fear of missing out, that can be a really big driver to keep us checking in. What's going on? What did I miss? Do I have any notifications, etc.? Now, another one that's not exactly the same is maybe this feeling of disconnection. If I'm not online, I'm not talking with people or seeing what they're putting out there, I'm going to feel more distance from those people, and I might feel like I'm not connected to them. And that's not a good feeling. I don't like that. Now, another one is maybe feeling uninformed or like you are out of touch. If you're not seeing the daily scroll on Twitter, or you're not opening Facebook or Instagram or whatever that is, you might not know if there's something going on that maybe is important, and maybe you should know about that. And that feeling of feeling out of touch or like you're missing information, that can be different. And I know it sounds like FOMO, but I do think these operate on different levels. Now, a next one is unpleasant inner state. Imagine you do not have social media to distract yourself. Think about all the different feelings that come up. Like if you're waiting in line, let's say you're getting your license updated and you're waiting in that line at the DMV and you were to reach down and didn't have your phone. The instant thing that happens for many of us is, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this wait? We have gotten so used to having our phones in our pockets that the idea of the discomfort of boredom and having those moments of just looking around and not knowing what to do, that can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And it's not just boredom. There are other feelings that might arise if you can't escape to social media. Now, another thing is maybe you have to confront reality. Meaning, if I don't have this distraction, because for many of us, it is an intentional distraction. We are choosing to go online or maybe go on social media, see what's up, because maybe there's something else that we want to put off facing. And that's the type of thing that we don't really actually want to deal with the stuff that's going on in our life for whatever reason. Now, once we've identified these fears, that's where we can take this and ask the question, okay, what must I believe if I think all of these fears are going to happen? So let's take a look. These are some examples, and it can differ, but this is maybe an example of thinking I need to be connected to people. You might have a belief that this is the easiest way for me to stay connected. And actually, that belief could technically be true. It might be the easiest way. But let's look at the second belief. It's the best way to stay connected. There are some of us who feel like because maybe we have access to so many people in that network, that maybe being on social media is the best way to be connected. But is that true? Even when you just say it and you imagine maybe sending a chat or reacting to someone's comment online, is that the same as a phone call or a visit? Or even a letter sometimes can feel more connected than how we interact with each other online. This is not to say that there isn't connection, but we can challenge our beliefs about connection and social media. Now, another one is a belief knowing, or I'll feel lonely without it. So when we imagine stepping away, if you have ever taken a detox from social media, or maybe you go on vacation and you don't have Wi-Fi, whatever the reason, if we have stepped away for a while, sometimes we worry that without access to all of these people in our online network, that we'll feel lonely. But often when we do step away, we don't feel that way. Sometimes we actually feel better about ourselves. Because sometimes when we're online, we feel more lonely because we're seeing all of the ways that we are not in person and connecting with each other. Another belief worth exploring is knowing what others are doing helps me stay relevant. This is particularly strong for entrepreneurs or business owners who want to see what other people are doing so that they know what they're supposed to be doing. As if somehow spending more time on social media will give you more insight and help you run your business more. But is that true? That's probably one worth challenging. And the other is maybe confronting, why would I not want to confront my reality? Well, maybe I have a belief that actually facing my reality head on, it's going to be awkward. Maybe it's going to be painful. Maybe my life is boring. Maybe I feel a little bit sad when I just picture not having that escape and just facing whatever it is going on in my life. Because remember, if you're using this as an escape, it means you're escaping from something. And often we have beliefs that we're not equipped necessarily to deal with it. So I see Ron has replied here, I do, but my network is on Facebook. It's easy to go down rabbit holes. So a no random scrolling policy so I can focus only on the groups I'm involved in. I think that is a fantastic idea. It's all about intention, right? So in this example, Ron is sharing that he knows what the benefit is to Facebook and he knows what he wants out of it, but he is conscious of how he can get pulled away. So I think that's a really great example of getting that clarity around how you want to use these things and then what are the things that work for you specifically when it comes to creating these boundaries. Now, a couple of things that I want to reiterate, which I have said before, but I'll say it again. We always want to start in the order of going straight from the top of what are some technical things I can do before you work down to the beliefs. Now, it's quite possible that when you saw a list of some of the examples of beliefs, you thought, yeah, that's me. I have FOMO, I'm worried about missing out, I'm worried about staying relevant, I don't want to be disconnected. Those might all be real, but let's start with the technical ones because here's the thing. When we do these technical changes, like practice not having notifications, practice taking it off your phone, keep your phone in another room, charge it somewhere else so you can't be tempted to look at it, maybe in the evening and read a book instead or have a conversation. These are all little tests that you can do. They are technical hacks. However, when you know that you've got some mindset blocks and you do these little tests, you can pay attention to what happens inside. Do I feel disconnected because I only checked once today instead of 3 or 4 times? Do I feel like I'm not up to date on what's going on? Do I feel like this is the best way to connect? Or maybe because I'm spending less time here, I'm actually picking up the phone and calling a friend, or maybe hopping on a Zoom call and having a face-to-face interaction. When we start to make these little changes, it can actually push our beliefs a little bit. I know anytime I have taken a break from social media, I have usually come back stronger, as in really knowing that me feeling good inside is not connected to how much time I spend on social media. But it also helps me reflect what are the things that I want to gain from it, and what are the things that I can do without and be just fine. So always start with the top and then work your way down. And as always, even if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear if there are tips or tricks that have helped you. And one more, have they helped you realize that maybe some of the beliefs you had about social media weren't actually so accurate? When you start to do this process, it will help you to get unstuck so you can start thriving.